I'm Leah Lane, an award-winning travel writer and author of Places I Remember, Tales, Truths, Delights from 100 Countries. On this podcast, we share conversations with travelers about fascinating destinations and memorable experiences around the world. Are you lucky enough to travel in luxury, or do you aspire to it? In any case, it's fun to hear about the world's most upscale travel from someone who experiences it all the time. Cleo Anderson is founder of the Anderson Media Group, a luxury lifestyle PR agency that works with luxury brands, including global luxury hotels. She's host of Wanderluxe on LUXE TV, a series for those who like to travel in style. Welcome, Cleo, to Places I Remember.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, before we talk luxury travel, I noted that one thing you do is act as a luxury travel curator for the high-profile Hollywood gift bag, hand-delivered to the top 25 Oscar nominees each year. I'm curious, what have been the most over-the-top luxury items in those swag bags for the stars?
As the luxury travel curator, I would have to say that the travel is probably something that adds the most to the bags because they usually tend to be the most expensive gifts. For example, this past year, one of my clients who has an amazing property in Canada, in Ottawa, he was in the bag. It was a 3-night stay worth $40,000.
$40,000.
That's right, for 3 nights. And with that, of course, you get so many different perks. So I think there are a couple of sports cars that are thrown in for the user's use. There's a private chef. It's a whole package and not just the accommodation. So generally speaking, all throughout the year, I'm on the lookout for the most amazing stays and I cherry pick them. And we put them in the bag. So it is a little bit Oprah, I'm not going to lie.
I'm sure they're very excited to open that bag.
Yes.
Well, let's get back to travel. How would you define luxury travel?
You know, for me, I've been doing this now for around 15 years. Luxury is actually about something that's bespoke, tailored to you. I think that if you go on a trip where you sort of feel as though every other traveler is experiencing the same thing or every other guest is experiencing the same thing, it's nice. It can be expensive, but it's not necessarily luxury. The luxury comes for me where there's such attention to detail that you understand that they've maybe researched you a little bit. They understand you as a guest. They understand what you like, what you enjoy, and they deliver that. That to me is what luxury is all about, especially when it comes to travel.
I've often written for publications that are luxury, so I'm lucky on that.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that 3 things stand out to me. The 3 S's. One is service.
Yes.
Service above all. Surroundings, because obviously you want a view and you want to feel like you're in the place you are. And space. Space gives you lots of things. Space from others, space in your room. It's just one of those things. So that would also be part of luxury, I think.
I actually love that you've melted it down to the 3 S's and you've got the alliteration and it's really easy to remember. And I agree with you. I think those 3 things are definitely fantastic elements.
And you can find some of them even if you're not traveling luxury. For example, if you search, you can find surroundings. Very often I found little hotels where you have a beautiful view, just like a big hotel that's very luxurious. You know, some hotels are known for their service, even though they're not luxury. So you have to sort of pick and choose a little bit if you're not paying the big bucks. Let's talk transportation. Luxury means, well, flying private, luxury yachts, special trains. Have you experienced some of that?
I've experienced all of that. And of course, it's lovely to be waited on a private jet. It's lovely to be on a luxury yacht. There, though, it's often to do with the company as well, I have to say, especially if you're sort of flying for a long time. I think it's nice to have a companion that you're able to enjoy that experience with. Or again, on a yacht, it's nice to be with a group of people that you really enjoy being with. But again, you know, it's the attention to detail that really adds to that. It's the food. It's the snack that maybe isn't on the menu that someone is happy to bring you. It's nice to be able to fly with a glass of champagne. I mean, that's an obvious one. And it's not something that everyone can do. But that, again, is a really lovely addition.
It just sounds so nice. I just like hearing about it. Now, lodging, I mean, what qualities make a lodging especially fine for you?
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you talked about a view. I'm a sucker for a great view. And it's really lovely if the view is reflective of where you are. On the first episode of Wanderluxe with Cleo Anderson, my new show on LUXE TV, I was really keen to choose something that had an Acropolis view so that people understand we're in Athens. It's this gorgeous historical city, and that historical view was right there. That's definitely one of the things, but also I'm a foodie. So for me, food is a big thing as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's a good tip for people who are not at a luxury hotel to ask for a view. They're very often, if you ask, you might be placed in the back of the hotel or the front, and it might be a beautiful view on one side and you don't know, but ask for it. And very often you get it. And that makes a big difference. I think wherever you are, you want to feel where you are. I think sense of place is one of those things in a hotel, even if it's a little hotel or, again, not a luxury hotel. If you feel like you're in the country you're in or the place you're in, it makes it a much more pleasant experience all around.
100%.
And I always seek that out. I go for the smaller hotels myself rather than the big chains, just for that, to feel like you're a part of the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Boutique hotels for me are often hidden gems, honestly. So
absolutely. I'm thinking of some hotels with a sense of place. Way back before it was famous, I stayed at a hotel called Villa San Michele.
Oh, where's that?
It's in Fiesole, right above Florence, Italy.
Oh,
and
lovely.
It used to be a convent. Yeah, it used to be a convent. It's a little further from the center, but it has a beautiful view of Florence, and it has an entrance that was designed by Michelangelo. It's so old. And when I went there, it was very reasonable because it had just opened and nobody knew about it. Now it's an ultra luxury hotel. So if you can get to some of these hotels early before people pick up on them, you might get a better deal. And also, if you go off season, you probably get a better deal. If you want to splurge, that's the time to go.
That's true. And I do think often it is a case of planning things ahead. I'm quite lucky in owning a PR agency. I'm often invited on complimentary stays, which is obviously a huge perk of the job. But also with the TV show, obviously we're now traveling and we're planning the next 3 episodes. And again, they're complimentary stays. But if you're not able to do that, I think planning ahead and, like you said, looking at the seasonality, maybe looking at new openings where sometimes they have great deals is also a wonderful way to do it as well.
Let's talk about some of your favorite luxury experiences around the world. Let's start with Abu Dhabi, Dubai area.
Oh, Abu Dhabi. So we were working with Anantara Hotels, and they have a wonderful hotel called Qasar Al Sarab. This was essentially a client trip. I had to go and experience.
You had to go.
Had to. Someone had to do it.
Someone had to do it, right?
Unfortunately, it was me, yeah. This stands out to me as probably one of the most amazing hotels I've ever stayed at because of the design. We talked about having a sense of place, and it's in the middle of the desert of Abu Dhabi. It almost looks like a ginormous sandcastle in the middle of a huge desert. It has an entryway that looks a little bit like a drawbridge that you walk up to.
Oh my.
Just waking up and all you see is sand was absolutely stunning. But the other thing that I think Anantara Hotels has is that the service is impeccable. I remember being by the pool, reading a magazine, and fancying something that wasn't necessarily on the menu, and they were happy to indulge.
Oh, yes.
The waiter went and found me what I
yes.
That just makes the whole thing fantastic.
Many years ago, I stayed at a lodging called Twin Farms in Barnard, Vermont. It has different villas and cottages around it, each one decorated in different styles, and they're all high end, but there's one that's called the painter's attic, and you come in and it's all strewn with paint, and it looks kind of, like a real attic with a tin sink and so forth. But you notice on the walls are original paintings by Frank Stella and some of these absolutely amazing, famous artists. It's really, really, really upscale.
It's real.
I remember this to this day. This was way back. Again, I was on a press trip. I'm going to say ahead of time that many of the places I stay, like you, I get to to be invited as a travel writer. It was originally one of the few places that had these themed villas. Now it's very common. And I also want to say in Abu Dhabi, there's a place called the Emirates Palace Mandarin Oriental, which is a huge former palace, huge. And
Yes.
the thing about that, I remember again as a guest, as I didn't stay there, I just walked through it, that I had a coffee latte with gold flakes in it.
I did the same thing. They're still doing it. They're still doing it. Yeah, that is a standout memory for me as well. And they do the pretty little design with the gold leaf.
Some barista there with gold, right? It's more like a jeweler.
Absolutely.
So I don't know again if all of us can go to them, but it's fun to hear about it. Let's talk about Monaco.
Monaco was a standout press trip as well. We had literally just segued into luxury travel as a PR agency at that time. We won the contract to do the PR for their 150th anniversary. So it was a huge deal, and every London agency at the time wanted this contract. So they flew me out to Monaco, which was fantastic. And I was there for a couple of nights. Monte Carlo SBM, it's a whole resort, and it takes up, I would say, around 80% of Monaco. So they own everything pretty much, from the casino to most of the hotels, restaurants, spas.
Wow.
I had to be familiar with all of them. So I was taken out to dinner.
I'm sorry.
It was awful. It was awful. But I had to try the various different restaurants, spas, and things like that. And I remember actually staying at the Hermitage Hotel, which in my mind was one of the prettiest hotels they have in the Principality, sort of pastel pink and blue coloured rooms. Really beautiful. And then obviously really great views over Monaco. So again, that's a standout press trip for me.
How about Bali?
Bali. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm a nature lover.
You too.
So anyone who likes greenery, lush plantation, they've got the Ubud jungle, Bali is the place to go to. We were working with the Viceroy Bali. It's actually a boutique hotel. It's run by an Australian family that are in Bali, and they have the most beautiful site. They've built this resort that is literally just above the Ubud jungle. And so they have an infinity pool that you can relax in and have your cocktails, but you're overlooking the jungle. It was amazing.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, and the rice paddies, and it's highly Instagrammable. You know that. I mean, it's just a beautiful place to be. This particular hotel had a helipad, so there was sort of that hint of privacy and luxury, I would say. And as a family-run hotel, I think they got the temperature just right for the guests. Beautiful. Yes. I was actually there for my birthday, so that was
happy birthday, Bali. Well, I stayed on my own in Bali, and I have to say, if you go, I remember I stayed at a little tiny place, and it was overlooking a lotus pond, and it was so peaceful and gorgeous. It was not a luxury hotel, but it was a luxury experience. I remember the beauty of that. Again, you can seek these things out without having to spend the money if you work a little bit at it. I looked for something that was overlooking water, so I enjoyed that as well. Tell me about Vietnam, your experience there.
Yeah, Vietnam, I mentioned before, I'm a foodie. Do you love food?
I am. I'm going to tell you what I ate in Vietnam in a minute, because I wrote it down. So you go first.
For me, I landed in Vietnam. I was traveling solo this time. I remember literally checking in, putting my luggage down. It was the evening. I thought, I'm hungry, and just going out onto the street, you can smell the street food. Oh, the food there is amazing. And I just remember sitting and having the most amazing, I think it was maybe some kind of chicken. And obviously it's not a glamorous thing, but there's something about it. You just feel, you're in Vietnam. The smells, the sights, the food, that was fantastic. And then I went to Ha Long Bay. I had a cruise around Ha Long Bay. It was on one of the Vietnamese junk boats. And that was, again, another fantastic experience. The boat itself reminded me very much of Agatha Christie. It was very, sort of dark, rich colours, and the wood, and sleeping on that was fantastic. Waking up to that amazing Ha Long Bay view.
Big limestone pinnacles that are
gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
That was on my bucket list, so I was really pleased to be able to tick.
And they let you swim into caves. You can go and swim off in their little caves all around. It's very beautiful. Yeah. Now I remember from Vietnam, I stayed Speaking of food, I stayed in a very old hotel in Dalat, which is in the hill area, and it's called the Sofitel Palace. It was at that time, and
Yeah.
it was a grand villa, and it was built during the French occupation there in the 1920s and 30s, so it was very French oriented. And I remember I wrote it down and I took it out here to tell you because I knew we were going to talk luxury. I love the name of the thing I ate. It's the opposite of street food. That's what I love about Vietnam. You can have delicious street food and also very, very high fine dining.
Yes.
And this is what they described for this meal on a press trip. We had, quote, stuffed baby squash and pumpkin flour with crab nectar plated in a confetti of edible flora. I'll never forget that. It tasted good, but I mean, the description of it.
Yeah, it's edible in itself, isn't it? The description.
And that was the meal they were testing because George W. Bush, who was president at the time, was going to be staying there the next week. So we got to test it for the president. It worked.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Did you ever go to Phu Quoc Island in Vietnam?
No. Tell me about it.
This place is worth a visit. So we were working with La Veranda. It's one of M Gallery's hotels. And I did a press trip there. And it's very different to the city. It's very different to Hanoi. It's a beautiful island, beautiful waters. This particular hotel was very reminiscent of the French occupation. So sort of had that sort of architecture, really beautiful colonial architecture. And again, just a wonderful experience because my suite was actually facing the beach. So the beach was literally sort of a 30-second walk as you wake up. You have your coffee and you can just walk onto the beach. I think now that the island is becoming a little bit more popular, people are hearing a little bit more about it now. But I was really pleased to go and visit that just before there's been a little bit of a boom.
Yeah, again, we're going back to trying to find a place that hasn't been discovered yet. The luxury is the space around you because it isn't crowded. And if you do your research and something just opens and you grab it, then you can experience this luxury without having to maybe pay as much money because part of it is the specialness of the quiet and the beauty and all of that before the crowds come. And so many places in the world are now crowded. If you seek out the ones that are less crowded, that's luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely. How about Turkey?
So Turkey, obviously, I love Istanbul. I'm sure you're familiar with the city. Yeah. You have two continents colliding. I mean, that's the interesting part about Turkey. So I spent some time in Istanbul, but then I went and flew to Cappadocia. You know, Cappadocia is just, I would describe it as magical. It doesn't look like anything else that I've seen. You know, the little turrets. It's almost like walking on the moon.
Yeah, all limestone again, this rock that's the monks used to live in these caves, and now there are hotels and lodges and B&Bs, and you feel like you're in another world.
In another world. And like you said, you know, the hotels are sort of these little caves and often they're joined together. So it doesn't feel like an ordinary hotel. It's very, very different. I specifically remember, every morning you've got the hot air balloons that go up.
Yeah.
Literally hundreds of them going up. And when I first got there, I was just looking and I thought, you know, I actually have to go up in a balloon. I'd been up in one before, but I thought I really want to do the whole experience. So going over the Cappadonian terrain, basically floating through the air, and then coming back down, and we had strawberries and champagne breakfast to sort of round off the trip. So
you don't have to stay in a luxury hotel to enjoy the beauty of that. You can look up. You don't have to go in the balloon.
Yeah, that's true.
If you don't want to do that. How about the Maldives, the islands in the Indian Ocean that are so popular now? We read about these gorgeous overwater. Well,
I would say if you're going to the Maldives, if you can, book into an overwater bungalow because really that's the experience, isn't it? It's interesting. I am planning to go back with my partner, but the first time I went there was not a romantic trip. I was actually on a press trip in Sri Lanka, hadn't realized that the Maldives was quite so close. Someone just mentioned, you do know that it's an hour's trip on an airline. to go to the
Gotta
Maldives.
go.
And I thought, oh, really, I should wait and have it be a really romantic experience. But then I thought, no, I'm here and I want to see it.
Good
So
for
I
you.
booked, I had to do it. So I booked into an overwater bungalow, waking up in the morning and feeling the sway of the Indian Ocean. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Your senses are involved. One of the things about travel is to prioritize. So if you want to do this, you can now do it many places in the world. You don't have to go all the way to the Maldives, which is a big trip.
It is a big
There
trip.
are now overwater in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I was in Moorea, which is outside of Tahiti. That's also far away, and I experienced it there. But you can do it close to where you live. I think before you thought you had to travel far, but now you don't, because everyone loves to be over water. So check it out. If that's something you like, it's probably doable. You don't have to
somewhere locally.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you.
One thing about the Maldives, I think people love these luminescent bays. There's a beautiful one there. Did you happen to go to it? It's absolutely shimmering at night, and can find it also in Puerto Rico and some other places around the world. But I love luminescent bays, and that's one of the
luminescent bays.
Yes.
I didn't really experience that on my first trip, but it's definitely something that I will want to do when I go back.
Romantic.
For sure.
That's romantic for sure.
Yeah, I'll put that on my romantic bucket list.
How about another island country, Mauritius? Now, most people have not been there. It's in the Indian Ocean, located off the eastern coast of Africa. Tell us about Mauritius.
Well, Mauritius, it's somewhere that I know, I would say intimately at this point. I used to live in Johannesburg with my partner. On my way back to London, I decided to stop off in Mauritius, and I ended up staying for 2 months.
I guess you liked it?
I loved it. You know, I'm a French speaker, so that automatically made me feel at home. Everyone really friendly. It's really great food. You know, the food is high up on my list of priorities. So when we signed another hotel client in Mauritius, it's a hotel called Paradise Cove. It's a boutique hotel, but it's really beautiful because they have a private beach in a private cove. And so that in itself just almost makes you feel like you're on a private resort.
Right.
And they have lots of different sort of restaurants and things to try. And it's that beautiful turquoise water of the Indian Ocean. You can't beat it. For me, being in Mauritius feels like being at home, because I immediately slide back into the French speaking, and, you know, everyone's brown skinned. So I melt right in. Beautiful. I love it. I love it there.
Let's end with two very romantic, wonderful cities that are known for luxury. One is Venice.
Yes. Venice to me is, and I have to apologize in advance to Paris, because I lived in Paris. I did my degree in French and law, and I had to live in Paris for a year.
You had to.
I had to. It had to.
There you go again.
To be done. Venice is probably, I would say, one of the most romantic places that I've ever been to. There's something about there not being any cars. It's only waterways. It's only boats. Beautiful. So we were working with not a hotel, but actually private apartments. There are lots of old palacios, palaces that have been carved up into private residences. I was staying in one of those. The great thing was that the owner was showing me around. You know, I just remember having gorgeous dinners at night, piazza, and even walking in the evening. There's something romantic about that. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, what do you feel about
I feel if you pick a place like that, you can have luxury at a very low cost, because the things you're saying, anyone can be enjoying. Again, if you try to beat the crowds, that crowd part takes away the feeling of luxury.
It can. You're right.
So plan that carefully, but you can do many of the things you're saying. And you can always go into a hotel that's luxurious and just have a drink at the bar and enjoy the lobby and enjoy the ambiance. Or, you know, just walk around in some of these beautiful areas, and then you get the feel of luxury. I love Venice as well.
Gorgeous.
Who doesn't? Now, we end with Paris. Tell us about what makes luxury.
I had my 40th birthday in Paris. And so I went with a group of girlfriends. So there were 4 of us. And this particular trip was actually a gift. So we stayed at the Four Seasons, the Georges V. Everything was planned. There was a dinner that had been arranged, a really great dance club at the end of the night. But the 4 of us girls were saying the Four Seasons really know. They've got the luxury details down. the service element of a Four Seasons is, I would say, almost unparalleled. And so that's what really made the trip for me.
Absolutely.
That, for me, was a fantastic birthday.
It sure was.
A great trip.
I have a tip for people who want to feel the full beauty of Paris. There's a tower that's kind of ugly called Tour Montparnasse. It's the highest building in Paris, in the center. And it is terrible except for the top, which has a restaurant called L'Upscale de Paris, which has big windows, and you get the best view of Paris because you get to see the Eiffel Tower in the view, which you don't get from the Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
And it's, a meal, and I think you can splurge for it, but it's wonderful to see all of Paris. If you come at sunset and you see the lights come on, it's extraordinary. So I give that tip to people who would like a feeling of the whole Paris, including the Eiffel Tower.
Also, I would like to add, everyone talks about the Eiffel Tower, but for me, Le Sacré-Cœur is probably the most beautiful spot in Paris, if I'm honest, because you've got the height, and it's also a really beautiful building as well.
That has all kinds of beautiful little restaurants and little cafes. And you don't have to spend a lot to enjoy that.
Yeah.
Well, the name of the podcast is Places I Remember. So, Cleo, let's share one special memory of your luxury travel.
Well, it's a location that not many people necessarily know about. It's in Switzerland, and it's the capital of Switzerland. It's Bern. A good friend of mine, her mother used to be the South African ambassador to Switzerland, and she very kindly invited me and my friend to go and stay for the summer. I just have memories of being in the Swiss sunlight, beautiful weather. Everyone was swimming in the river.
Interesting.
It was very interesting, and it's not something I was expecting. I was saying to you earlier, I'm a nature lover. And so for me, it was the trees, it was the river, it was the sun, gorgeous. Most people, when they think about Switzerland, they think about Geneva, or they think about, other places. But Bern has a natural beauty that was just gorgeous, especially in the summer months. So that's a memory that will always stay with me.
Well, that's wonderful, because again, anyone can enjoy that. I think we're having fun talking about the luxury, the ultra luxury, but also there are beautiful things that are free, such as what you're describing. And you just have to keep your eyes open and plan a little bit ahead, again, to avoid the crowds, and you can all enjoy that. So it's a good way to end this. Thank you so much, Cleo Anderson, luxury travel expert, host, and co-producer of the luxury travel show Wanderluxe with Cleo Anderson, airing on LUXE TV. You've shared some of the dreamiest travel in the world, but to me, all travel is dreamy. So just go out there and do it, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've had so much fun talking to you.
Me too. Thank you. Thanks for listening to our award-winning podcast. We've recorded over 100 episodes of Places I Remember, so follow us on any podcast app. And new monthly episodes are also on YouTube with gorgeous video. My book, Places I Remember, is available in print and Kindle, and I read the audio version. Follow my travel writing at Forbes.com. Contact me at the links in the show notes or on my website, placesirememberlealane.com, and keep making your own travel memories.